Hello, thank you. I'm Steve Kohn, Executive Director of the Whistleblower Center. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to keep this as short as possible. It's why we're actually gathered here today to celebrate National Whistleblower Day. Senator Grassley, with his caucus, has just gotten the U.S. Senate about an hour ago to officially declare today National Whistleblower Appreciation Day. The history is laid out in my handbook, but I just want to touch on it a little because as whistleblowers go through the struggles and the difficulties they face, I think it's very important to always go back into history and find out what our place really is. When the United States declared its independence on July 4th, they set out ideals for a new government, a government of the people based on equality, based on liberty. We all know that that government has fallen short from time to time, and we also know the government has risen to the occasion. But the first time it had to deal with whistleblowers in its own government was just 7 months after the revolution, when 10 sailors and Marines at the lowest level decided to blow the whistle on the commander of the U.S. Navy, alleging, among other things, mistreatment of British prisoners. They voted one among their members to jump the ship and go to the U.S. Congress in February 1777 and lay out their petition. He was specifically asked at the hearing, "Did you have permission to jump the ship?" And he said, "No, but I love my country." Congress took action. They suspended the commander, conducted an investigation, but very shortly thereafter, the retaliation commenced. The commander, whose brother had been the governor of Rhode Island, a very powerful family, filed charges against all the whistleblowers, seditious libel and conspiracy. He captured 2 in Rhode Island, where he could find them, and threw them into jail. And from there, the whistleblowers wrote a letter to Congress, which I'll read, because in my 30 years of representing whistleblowers, what they wrote, I've heard before, I know I'll hear again. "Your petitioners, not being persons of affluent fortunes, but young men who have spent their time in service of their country in arms against its cruel enemies, finding themselves arrested for doing what they believed and still believe was nothing but their duty." These are American Revolutionary soldiers in prison in 1778 writing words that I have heard from hundreds of whistleblowers today. They asked for assistance against, quote, "a powerful person who has the advantages of his offices, and whom through the present war has amassed great wealth." That letter went to Congress, and then Congress took action. In your program today, you will see the law they passed. Word for word, I don't need to read it. It's the first whistleblower law in the United States and perhaps the first ever in the world. And it says it's the duty of all persons to report the frauds and misconduct at the earliest possible opportunity. But they did more than that, our founding fathers. They released all the government records, not through Freedom of Information Act. They released the records that could be highly embarrassing to the U.S. government and the Navy, to give those to those whistleblowers to make sure they could defend themselves. And then they went one step further, and they allocated money to hire a highly skilled lawyer to represent them. And I think it's important to understand the context of this action, all of which was unanimous without any dissent. You're in the middle of a revolution. Our government has no money. The revolutionary founding fathers, if they lose that war, it's not an election, it's not a poll, they will be hung for treason. They will lose all their property. They have everything on the line. Yet at that moment in time, that moment in history, they took money from the US Treasury and said, we're going to give it to those whistleblowers to get them out of jail and defend their good names. And they did it, and the whistleblowers won their case. Now, I actually said, this is pretty amazing, so I sent some of my fearless interns to the National Archives to find the check that was written, and it was. This happened on July 30th, 1778. Our founding fathers made today National Whistleblower Day because of their actions they took on July 30th. And it is our duty to celebrate it and demand that our Congress and our President recognize it. Thank you.